My wife and I had met in college and started talking about this personality type thing. And our friends and family were like, would you please shut up, right? Or do something with it, right? Because you're just driving us crazy. So we had that classic moment. We saved up some money and we said, how hard can it be? We're just going to brew a pot of coffee, call up big companies and be like, hey, hire us.
Hey, we got 99 problems, but this episode ain't one. Welcome to episode number 99 of the Sarasota SpeaX podcast. As always, Brad Hannon.
Trey Strong.
Felipe Colon.
Who the hell's Trey Strong?
I've been thinking
Doesn't matter. We got Rob Toomey on the podcast. What's up, Rob?
That's good, guys.
Welcome to the pod. We're excited to get into this.
Big Bob.
Good to be here.
We're excited to get into this. We could go so many different directions. I feel like tech startups are, everywhere right now, especially with the advent of AI. You're using some buzzwords like healthcare and niches and all of this stuff, but just tell us generally, what is Sirq Studio? Give us kind of the high level overview, and then we'll get into the weeds.
Sure. Well, we'll start with the name, right? So Sirq, S-I-R-Q, we're putting the innovation in SRQ, right? And then Sirq is the homage to the circus history here.
Wow.
It's trying to, it's kind of the inside thing that only locals would understand. And we think there's a huge opportunity here in Sarasota with the demographic shift we've seen since the pandemic to activate a local startup ecosystem. Our part's going to be in AI and healthcare. We think there's huge opportunities to do two things: expand access to care. Like 80% of the counties in the U.S. don't have like a single specialist. You can't get care. And then the quality of care that you get if you drive 100 miles, probably not going to be that great.
Yeah.
AI is going to level the playing field, give information to people who are perhaps not number one in their class out of medical school, but they can access the information that the Mayo Clinic has or the specialist at the Cleveland Clinic has. So we're going to be leading that charge.
Love it. So your part, when you say your part, you mean that's kind of you're pioneering that. What's the other part, if you will?
Yeah, so there's this growth of tech startup people here in Sarasota that we're really excited to see. So Tech Jam and this the whole summit, there were 300 and something people at the January kickoff for this year, and it's really exciting to see. As someone who I moved here 13 years ago, couldn't imagine that being possible, and now it's actually starting to happen.
So you've been here long enough to see the folks who've been kind of banging this drum for a long time, like Rich Swire or Tech Jam's Raymar Tirado or any of the other guys who've been really focusing on tech here in town and know that this is a place that could be an incubator, but we just, for whatever reason, haven't been to get over the crest of that wave.
Yeah, I think it's funny, when I think about when we moved here, my wife and I moved here 13 years ago because my in-laws had moved here 2 years earlier. We started visiting them. I'm like, hang on,
great.
Why am I not living here, right? All you need in my business, my core business at the time, Wi-Fi and a cell phone. Right, so Sarasota's got that, plus the palm trees and everything else.
Thanks to Rich Swire, we have Wi-Fi.
Right, exactly.
That's a good point.
Brought the internet here.
Him and Al Gore. Way back to the beginning, right? Yeah, no, so for me, it's why wouldn't you live here? And the pandemic created that sort of broader awareness of what we ran into 13 years ago, which is why not?
I read an article the other day about how New York City has lost about $9 billion in tax revenue to Miami.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you looked at some of the high tax states and where everybody's coming from here and to see similar kinds of things going on.
Yeah, and it's funny too, when we look back the last 13 years and we have friends back home up in Boston, you go visit them and you can go 2 weeks without seeing the sun, right? And I don't think people realize living there, no disrespect to places that are like that, but when you have 300 plus days of sun, you can't go back.
Yeah.
There's no way.
You're cranky for no reason, right? And then you were like, oh, there is a reason. I haven't seen the sun for 2 weeks.
Yeah. And my wife grew up in Buffalo. I grew up in New Hampshire. So we both came from places that are mostly gray most of the year. And so for us, we feel like we won the lottery.
I love it.
Vitamin D deficiency, major problem. Google that when you get a chance.
So it's true. Why do we feel like Sarasota has kind of started to become this hotbed of tech, though? What's changing? What's evolving? Is it just people that love sunlight, or is it what's going on here from the tech world that is bringing this to light now?
So I think
no pun intended, right?
Right.
You see what I did?
Wow,
that was good.
300 days of that kind of joke.
Good.
All right, so the way I look at it is, a bunch of people are pioneers. They moved down here, and then a great story is a guy who lives out in Sky Ranch, right? Moved down here because of the sunshine, whatever, and he works for a big company called Salesforce, right? And he goes into the company directory. And he's like, I wonder who else lives down here. Sure enough, 40 people live within a 50-mile radius. But he didn't know that. They all individually made the choice to come down.
And these are
here.
users or people that work
People who work
working
in
remotely.
Salesforce.
Wow.
Right?
I know a few actually.
Right.
Yeah, that's the money goes a little bit farther here than down to San Francisco. too.
And like if you sat down with the map of the United States and said, where do I want to live? And I have to have sunshine and beaches and all this stuff. You're looking at California or this area. And like if you're not up for California, here we go.
Don't forget Texas.
Yeah,
They don't like to be forgotten over there. There's a lot of movement to Austin and
It's true, it's
those
true.
areas as well.
Yeah, hold
Same
down
reason.
into the south.
Taxes and
Yeah.
sunshine. I don't know. Someone's got to come up with a more rhyme way to say that.
Let's get back to your business model. So who are your clients?
All right, so for which one? Because I've got two, right? So the core business, the personality business, that's been going for 20 years. That's mostly like big companies. And so when we first moved down here, I was like, oh, I'll get some Sarasota-based clients. And I remember opening up the Sarasota County like register and like, who are the biggest employers, right?
Not a ton, right?
Publix,
Yeah.
right? SMH.
It's a
right?
fun
So
topic.
I closed it back up and I said, all right, so there's no clients here for me here. But that core business, we're going after larger organizations. That's 20 years old. I'm not like, it doesn't require my day-to-day operation for everything. And I have this desire to do early stage startups. As crazy as it sounds, like I love the messiness and chaotic nature of the early stage startup space. And so I told my wife, I'm like, I really want to start other businesses. And then it makes sense to do that in Sarasota because of the demographic shift and the opportunity to do something here. So the clients for what we're trying to do here will be in the healthcare universe, individual, people who have a medical issue, eventually providers like doctors, et cetera, and then eventually healthcare systems will utilize our solutions.
But one thing you didn't mention as part of that equation is there's capital here for that. So it's not just that, this is a great place to move for talent. We've got a lot of advantages and there's a budding community here. The capital's always been here. And that's one thing, that's the blood, right?
Yeah, I mean, we need that. That's the fuel for what we're trying to do. And so we'll find out if we can activate it. A number of people we've spoken with who are newer transplants are like, why would I do something here when I've got opportunities back home? So I think there's an educational component to say, we can do it here. We have the resources here to do it, an educational component. But there's plenty of people out on the Keys, right, who have the kind of capital that we need. They just need to look over and see something happening here in the Sarasota area to get involved.
They will. It usually takes a little bit of time for them to want to get involved in business here because they do have something going, but then they see the opportunity here is as good or better than what they have back home. So it'll that part will happen. I'm not worried there. Yeah. What I am trying to figure out here is like, aside from, let's say, somebody watching this podcast, how are you going after clients? Like what's you're pounding the pavement, of course, mm-hmm. right? It's every entrepreneur, every startup, everybody's got to start there. But what's the bigger plan for taking this to that next level?
I think there's a really good community story, right? So if we're successful raising our fund, we'll end up launching 15 to 20 technology companies here in Sarasota over the next 5 years, right? That changes the feel of downtown. And we want them to be like, we'll have an office downtown, and then ideally they're down the hallway or across the street from us. And eventually it becomes like a whole ecosystem just by ourselves. And that's just part of the broader thing that, the rest of the community is working on. What does that do? Well, it means that now other people are going to want to move here to become part of that technology ecosystem. So we'll start to see younger, technology-oriented people flooding the streets, filling the restaurants, paying for rent.
It's kind of out of left field, but where we're seeing that right now? Titusville on the other coast. Okay. Space tourism. Go to a gas station in Titusville. There's a lot of people who look like they're scientists and, and it's not just what used to be there.
Did you go there?
I go there sometimes.
How do you learn this?
Dude, keep your ear to the street, Brad.
Felipe looks like he could be a scientist. Maybe they thought that about you at the gas station.
Maybe they did. No, but seriously, they're launching rockets all the time over there. Somebody's doing that work.
Yeah, you just need like one spark and it can grow, right?
I'm not launching the rockets, Trey. Someone else is.
We're going to bounce around. I can already tell we're going to bounce around a little bit. You talked about chaotic and chaos. We may have a a little bit of it here. We'll have some fun with it, but
what is it about the startup companies that
chaos,
draws you to it? What do you like about it?
It's a really good question because I ask myself that a lot. My friends are like, you've got a really strong business. Why would you do that, of all things? And the answer is you really get to shape something. You get to build something. You get to put your stamp on it. But it also requires a tremendous amount of creativity. Like every single step that you take with an early stage startup, you're going to hit a wall. right? All right, well, how are we going to get around that? And for whatever reason, I like getting over those things.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's immensely satisfying. And then when you look back and you're like, holy cow, we like built something really cool that's immensely satisfying. And I don't think everyone's wired that way. Like going back to the personality thing, most people run away from that chaos because they want more certainty in their lives. And I'm like running right at it.
So usually when we talk about building things around here, we're talking about swinging a hammer, putting on a roof. I mean, real estate and development, that's been our bread and butter for so long in Florida. How do we get over that hump to that next level where we're doing the innovation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's for me, it's like showing that we can by those first few steps. So getting some really successful companies out there to become the role model for everyone else. And then it's like, well, why would you live in Chicago or Boston? And again, both great cities to visit, but 300 days of sunshine, here we are. And you can, the ability to handle stress when you've got that sunshine and you can just go to the beach, just blow off steam, is totally different than your job is like, at the end of your day, you get on the subway and you're underground. Like, it's harder, right? So
mentally, for sure.
With the rats, literally a rat
Staring
race,
at all
man.
those friendly people across the
Right.
booth from me. Yeah.
So we skimmed briefly over the personality company, but that's obviously part of the foundation that got you here. You had to be a little entrepreneurial, a little creative. There was actually even a tech component to that 20 years ago that doesn't really, translate to today in the tech world we have. But 20 years ago, you come out with this kind of personality test. Where does that develop? Where does that start? And
sure, yeah.
And so, don't forget, it's called Typecoach. We can plug it because I did go through it. Did you go through it?
No.
I
was in Peru.
Yeah, okay.
Honeymoon.
He was on his honeymoon. Oh, yeah. Hey, by the way, how was the honeymoon?
It was excellent. I love my wife so much, and I love spending so much time with her.
Good. I teed that up for you. See?
He looked like he was reading right now.
So 20 years ago, you start this, personality test. We had, at that time, we probably still had the disc and, a couple of the other things. So what drove you to that? And where do you go from law to personality testing?
Yeah, so it was a hard right-hand turn. So I practiced law for 5 years with big law firms in Boston, but my clients were venture capital funds and the startups. And I was like, why am I on the lawyer side of the equation? That's where I want to be. So I saw up close.
You get to
and
see
You got
the
to peek
fun.
at their P&Ls.
Right, well,
hey, guys.
Oh man, I remember
I'm entrepreneurial.
I remember so vividly. Here's a fun little rabbit hole. So I was a junior associate working on an IPO, and I remember this kid came in with a backpack, and he looked like he was 19, probably about that. And he's like, I've got the thing that you needed me to sign. I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to just sign it and email it. But what are you doing here, kid? Right? And he's like, my mom said I needed to drop it off because our family's never seen any kind of money like this. So his shares in this company that were about to go public were worth like $3 million.
Wow.
And this was going to change his whole family's life and whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll take this, put it in the pile, no big deal. And then unfortunately, poor guy, the company does not go public. It gets bought instead. The company that buys it, Ask Jeeves, right, is like flying high. And then from the moment they buy all the way down. So they
paid him in stock.
He paid him in stock, and he basically...
I would have cashed that out and invested in Google. That's just what I would have
had
done.
he been able to, he absolutely would have.
You know who had the same scenario? Mark Cuban. That's how he made his first big money. He got the shares and immediately dumped them, and he's lucky because the tech crash.
Indeed.
I was just gonna say, I thought you were gonna go. That was his big success story, and I was like, why don't more people talk about this to put the stock market in a positive light? But then that happened.
Let the man finish his story.
I believe that he made lots of money in many other ways. Right. So
Well, that's
anyways, so for me, I was like, I want to be on the other side of the equation. I think I've got the risk profile to just go run at it. And my wife and I had met in college and started talking about this personality type thing. And our friends and family were like, would you please shut up, right? Or do something with it, right? Because you're just driving us crazy. So we had that classic moment. We saved up some money and we said, how hard can it be? We're just going to brew a pot of coffee, call up big companies and be like, hey, hire us. I mean, at the time I'm 29 years old. Like, there's no way they're going to hire me, but I didn't know that. And had we known how hard it was, we never would have done it. But then 9 months later, we get our first client. 2 years later, we're break even, and next thing you know, it's rolling along. So that's how we got into it, is because of our deep passion for the topic. What we did really from the beginning was to completely flip it on its head. So the traditional approach to personality is to fill in a questionnaire, and then it tells you what you are, and it doesn't work. 30 to 50% of people end up with the wrong answer, and so they're wandering around being like, "Oh, I'm a blah blah blah," and you're like, "No, you're not." So we came up with our own solution, which is using videos and animation to explain the different aspects of personality, as you would have seen. And then it's like, and here you get to choose to see which one you are. And then it works way more effectively. So that was the first technology innovation that we brought in.
Would the critics say that some people aren't self-aware?
Or biased.
Yes.
Just biased, period.
Yeah, I'm
You know?
perfect.
Everybody wants to see themselves
take
in a
the
better
perfect
light,
one, yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, so that's where actually more likely to show up in a questionnaire.
Okay.
So you're going to answer a situation based on your aspirational self.
Okay.
Or your, like how you.
Your best self, yeah.
Right. How you
yeah.
you wish you were, as
Right.
opposed to how you really are. So we remove the bias that's in the questions and make both of them look really equally good. It's not just like, well, you do both, of course. Which one's the one that comes naturally to you?
So it's basically like there was a sliding scale, if you will, 5 on one side, 5 on the other, 0 on in the middle. A lot of those questions were, are you assertive or passive? And it wasn't directly like that.
What would you say?
Assertive, right?
Yeah.
But there was other questions that were like, are you strategic, or what would the flip side of that be for the personality guy?
But detail-oriented and practical.
Are you detail-oriented and practical, or are you, strategic? And I was like, well,
Big picture, small picture.
I'm maybe like
Strategic.
too strategic, but there's a lot of practicality too. So, I mean, you're looking.
Brad's perfect on both sides.
No, you're looking at it more objectively. And to his point, when you get done with it, it gives you another option. Here's another option. Does this sound more or less like you?
Okay.
So I was ESTJ, right? And then the other option was ENTJ, and I thought, well, ENTJ, looked at that, and that made more sense.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty self-aware, so I think it was accurate. But yeah, you're gonna have those outliers all the time.
I think that the bottom line, it seems like, this sounds a lot like polling to me, right? Where there's a science that underlies this, but there's also an aspect of art to it, which kind of speaks to what we talked about earlier, is that with the startup mind is inherently not only a risk taker, but a creative.
Yeah, and what I think you're right on. Like from my perspective, the opportunity for us at that time to innovate was to basically make it practical. Like, because people will end up walking through a traditional whatever program and be like, okay, I don't know what to do. And so if we can activate it and push that into, okay, here's what your colleague Sarah needs you to do based on the combination of your two personalities, then people can actually utilize it. And that was really the main advancement for us, because
And that's like the type to type piece, right?
Yeah.
So for you guys that didn't do your research for this podcast, you're learning about your type, you're learning about some of the other types, and then like type to type. So like, hey, here's how you are, here's how Sarah might be, and here's the best way to communicate effectively to Sarah.
Understood. Now, what do the Fortune 500 companies use this for? Hiring practices or for
it's a great question. Yeah. So
teamwork?
So teams are number one.
Before he speaks, though, when I went through this, I was like, should I give this code and URL and everything to all my team now, or should I ask him for permission to use this for free later? Because immediately, and seriously, there's 100 people out there with 100 different personalities.
Do you have a Spanish version?
My immediate reaction was, man, I need this for my team. I really do. Not necessarily because I've been through DISC and similar. I went to a conference called Strategic Wealth Accumulation Tactics. It's very similar, and you learn more about effectively communicating with other personality types.
Yeah.
Every other personality test is learning about yourself.
We'll get you on the same payment plan as Publix.
This is learning how to communicate to other personality types, and that's advantageous.
And that's what the Fortune 500 is paying for, right? Cool. So our competitors are providing self-awareness, which has limited utility, and we're solving communication problems.
Right, I'm self-aware of it. I just don't give a damn, right? So, I get it.
You're not going to get very far with it. So what's interesting is, it's mostly teams, then leadership development, so you got to promote this person up and they need to become a better version of themselves, and then a lot of sales. So a large part of what I've been doing for the last 20 years is training salespeople on how to adapt to their potential client or customer. And salespeople are great to work with because they know when it's not working.
Right.
Like, oh man, I'm failing here so hard.
And they're results oriented, right? They want that reward.
If I can get you 15 to 25% more deals, would that be worthwhile? They're like, yeah, no, we need that right now. And so that's been a fun. I love.
Trey doesn't have any salespeople, but if he did, he would put them on that for sure.
I fucking hate salespeople.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. It would be a great thing for you.
I'll give you another little rabbit hole, right? So years ago, I was working with a bunch of guys from Ameriprise. So they're out there trying to build their book of business. Right. And so what was fun is this one guy comes up to me and he's like, so I have a really hard time getting my clients to get involved in the social events that we have. So this is up in Boston. He's like, we'll do like a Fenway Park behind the scenes tour or a cruise. And he's
that's
like,
a nice event. They're not showing up for that. If they're not showing up for that, they're not showing up for anything.
Anything at all. And he's like,
sorry, buddy, you're boring. Or something.
So he's like, I think there's something wrong with me or my clients. He has just as good a book of business, right? So he goes through the course and he comes up and he's like, I figured it out. I'm like, what happened? He's like, I had movie night and everyone showed up. Right, so movie night, you get a preview movie like the day before it goes out into the theaters, right? And all of his clients showed up. I'm like, this guy's name was Robert. I'm like, Robert, you're an introvert, and so are all of your clients.
Yes. He's attracting who he is. Yeah.
And so he's providing a listening environment, drawing them like flies to honey, right? And ultimately, then he's able to fill a movie theater when he can't do a Fenway Park thing because they don't want to go.
Right. It's too much socialization.
They're like, that's punishment. That's not a reward.
Clever. That's
not supposed to talk in a movie. I don't know if you knew that. So they're just.
I don't go to the movies, man. I watch like PBS NewsHour.
I can tell. That's how we learn about Titusville.
On Titusville.
I go to Titusville. Come on now.
That's interesting, but that is what most people would pay for. Is it's not necessarily about learning about yourself, and if you want, whatever outcome, and you can remove your own personal feelings from it, you want to communicate in a way that's going to be effective for them. So, how have you developed the system from what it was 20 years ago to today? Hey, if you want to hear the answer to that question, you better stay tuned for the break. We're going to get to know Rob a little bit closer with rapid fire questions fueled by food and beer.
All right, hey, this is Rob Toomey, Managing Director of Sirq Studio and President of Typecoach. And this is Rapid Fire.
10 random questions.
10 specific answers.
Nothing off limits.
This is Rapid Fire, fueled by food and beer.
Do you have any pets?
I have 2 cats. They are sisters.
Have you ever played a musical instrument? Or do you think you're a guitar hero?
Trumpet, yes, all the way through freshman year of college when I got too busy in other stuff.
Are you a thrill seeker, or do you like to play it safe?
I am a thrill seeker.
I also like to live dangerously.
Besides jump, what's the worst advice you've ever been given?
Go to law school.
Being a lawyer is the worst.
Toilet paper, over or under, or stuck to your shoe?
Over. Come on, that's not even a question.
What quote really resonates with you?
Hold my beer. Don't mind if I do.
What's that Oscar Wilde? Yeah, it's like be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Yeah. I think it's actually that. It's just be yourself. Everyone else is already taken.
Okie dokie. What's your favorite candy bar?
Candy bar would be Three Musketeers.
All for one. One for all. If you got a new dog today, what would you name it?
Fluffy?
Baby Chico?
Turbo?
Felipe?
Oh, what would I name the new dog? Huck.
Good strong name.
If you were a professional wrestler, what would your entrance song be?
Eye of the Tiger.
Besides automated dog walkers, what do you think AI is going to look like in 10 years?
It's hard to see past 3 years on AI. I'm going to take the positive angle and say that it's going to be our best friend.
Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? Why can't
So the fun part for me has been maintaining the entrepreneurial mindset. So like it's easy to get caught up if you're a founder in building what you think everyone wants. So typically what we do is we've got an idea and then we go to our biggest customer and say, do you want it? And if they all say we need it yesterday, then we build it. And that's where all of our innovations have come from. Remember in COVID, we had this fun thing where like, oh, everyone needs health and wellness. So we built out a module. We sent it out to all of our clients. No one watched it. I'm like, thank God we didn't build that damn thing because like no one wanted it. They were too busy to worry about health and wellness, to worry about, right? So That kind of signal from your client is really, really critical. And so each of the things that you see on our platform have been directly requested by our clients or validated by those kinds of conversations.
And how many clients you guys have now? Like, what's your numbers, if you don't mind sharing some of
Yeah,
that?
so we have about 900 active clients right now. We're in 8 languages, both Castellano, which is the Spanish they speak in Spain, and Latin American Spanish. So we're all over the place. Most of our clients will get people through our certification, so they can just deliver the programs themselves. So like Procter & Gamble put 27,000 people through, and we weren't really involved. They just got their people certified, and then they bought the accounts for the platform.
So it's a recurring revenue model, so they pay a subscription fee, and the reason they keep paying is because they want to bring all the new employees that come on into that culture.
Exactly right. So what's cool is like we have a team report, so like you'll see your whole system, your whole team in the system, and then it will generate a report that says, wow, you've got 8 introverts and 7 extroverts. Here's the advice we give for that team. Well, the team's going to change over the next 18 months. You're going to want to redo that report, so you have to keep your account active.
I see.
That's the hook.
So the information's in the cloud, and you want access to the cloud, you gotta
keep paying.
Keep stroking
Well,
the check.
but the information's only as accurate as as the team changes and
fluid.
evolves. So it's got to
fluid.
It's got to.
I'm learning. This is interesting.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, and so like if you have someone who joins the team new and they don't know anyone on the team, well, you need them to be able to see Sarah and John in order to get the advice. Otherwise, they're flying in the dark.
Of course, you've definitely fielded this question before, and I'm sure it's not going to catch you off guard. If it does, you can just steer it away. But what differentiates your system versus Disc or some of the other ones?
Yeah, it's the self-awareness thing. They're not answering the what do I do with this, the so what question. So like everyone will go through a program and be like, okay, what do I do? And we're answering that question for them. And then they're getting a year's worth of access at a minimum to a platform that's going to basically spoon feed it to them over time.
Love it. Yeah, you've definitely got the question before, huh? So shifting gears back to Sirq. Okay, when did Sirq start?
So I started thinking about the whole notion of a venture studio or startup factory 4 years ago. And I've actually done a couple projects in that space, but it wasn't like a full studio. It was really just going after project by project, which is not an efficient way to do it. And then I went to the Tech Jam, and I was like, this could happen here. Right, and that like literally, I took an Uber home because there was some drinking, and I was like, all right, I'm like, this is going to happen here in Sarasota.
Yeah.
The environment is now ripe for it. So over the last maybe 8 or 9 months, I've been exploring through the conversations what it would look like to put a studio here. And that's where Sirq came from. So I'm co-piloting it with a gentleman by the name of Tom Gardner. Tom's going to see this. And
What's up, Tom?
Tom. And,
Tommy!
and he's an extremely well-connected guy in the Sarasota network, and so he's been opening lots of doors. I originally thought of him as like a elder statesman, chairman of my board, and he's like, no, I want to roll up my sleeves and get in there. And this is going to open up our retirement conversation. Tom's past the retirement age, and he's like, no, I want to do this. And I'm like, why? He's like, I'm built for this, right? And I have this philosophy, and this like the retirement thing, when I think about it from a personality perspective, I think that most people should have something that they do well into their 80s, as long as their brain's capable of doing it.
Absolutely.
If you just stop doing whatever it is that you do, then your brain's going to start to atrophy, and there's only so many hours you can drink and play golf, right? And so Tom is like,
how many though? I mean,
I've tested it.
Yeah, I can probably do more hours than most.
Yeah. So for Tom, he's the same as me. He's drawn to the chaos of the early stage startup space. So like that's where I'm energized. That's where I want to be. So now we're 50-50 partners making the whole thing happen.
So the retirement conversation came up before the podcast we were talking about. People don't really want to retire anymore. They want to have financial freedom. They want to accumulate wealth so that they can call shots, right? And that related back to Sarasota because, people associate Sarasota as this sleepy retirement place. Yeah, we've got a nice beach. There's people with money here, golf. But, that goes right back into the startup conversation because we know it's a lot more than that. You just, unless you know these people, you just don't hear those stories.
Well, I'll say this, like if people are watching this and they want to get involved in the startup scene and they're past retirement age, call me, right? We need your expertise. We need your, your involvement in this activity. In law school, I had this guy who was a professor named Clark Bice. And at the time, he was 83 years old, teaching the contracts class at my law school, which is probably the hardest, most demanding class to teach, and the one that everyone talks about, right? And at 83, I went and had lunch with him. I'm like, so what's going on here? Right? He's like, well, I taught at Harvard Law School for as long as they would let me. I had a mandatory retirement. He's like, I looked around and I said, I'm not done. So I went to BU, and he's like, I called up BU, and they said, we'd be happy to have you. And he's like, the day I stop is the day I die. Right? You guys are the smartest kids in the world. You're keeping me sharp every single day. Like, you walk up to the podium, he's got a printout of all the people.
There's some self-awareness for you. Smartest kid in the world.
Well,
that was you.
Just had got that. Don't look at my law school grades. Anyway, so
Hey, you made it.
that's right.
That's all.
There's a picture of each student in the class with their name below it, and he's like, Mr. Toomey, would you tell me about such and such? And he was sharp as a tack. And I took that. I was like, that's how I want to be when I'm 83. Now, I don't want to teach a law school class because that's not who
Especially
I am.
contracts.
But that's who he was, right?
Yeah.
And this is where the personality thing comes full circle, because he was doing what he's supposed to do. But most people don't know what that is, right? Most people are just going through life doing whatever they have to do to make the money so they can go do the things that they want to do. But if you can actually find the thing that you're supposed to do that you find naturally energizing, then work's not work. You don't want to retire. There's a great video of George Carlin being interviewed like by Letterman or whatever, and they're like, "So you're kind of old. Why are you still doing this?" He's like, I hate that question. No one ever asked Picasso why he kept painting.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm loving that, right?
It's true, and the biggest difference in you saying that, one thing we kind of got to make clear is it's not what you're necessarily. It's not your hobby. It doesn't even have to be necessarily what you're passionate about. You said something kind of key there, and it's like what energizes you, right? What can you wake up and be excited to do? And some of those exciting things aren't, I would wake up and be excited to play video games, or make money online doing nothing, or what. Like it energizes you. Like you go do it. It excites you. Overcoming obstacles or the challenges or the chaos or whatever that might be. You look for it, and it's. You welcome it, right? Where I feel like a lot of mid to late 20-somethings, especially males, they look at what they're doing as, I'm just not passionate about it. I just don't love it. And we sell Medicare. No one's passionate about that. I mean, few and far between. And those are kind of odd birds, right? Like those are not normal people.
Trey, roofs.
I've tricked a few people into being passionate about roofs.
I'm just not, just the point is that it's what energizes you, not necessarily what you have fun doing in your off time, or and it may be fun, but it's not a hobby.
I mean, again, I'm no expert like Rob is, but you got to trick them into.
You are.
Well, yeah, I am, but you want to trick them into winning. Winning's the passion, right? So you kind of gamify
for
it.
some people, man. I mean, you're competitive. You played college sports, played sports your whole life. You're a competitive dude. Winning is a motivation for you.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people. Winning is not a motivation for them.
Well, they're not invited to my party. Then.
Just telling you, some artists, some creative folks, they don't want to win.
It's
They
such
want to
a
bring
good-
people to the table.
It's such a good conversation. It's what we need to be teaching our kids to figure out, which is the word we're circling around is purpose.
Yeah.
Right. So like if your purpose is winning and being competitive and driving, fantastic. You're going to have enormous energy if you're put into the right spot. If you want to be a social worker and you want to help people by giving them the thing that they need in that moment, there's your purpose, right? But we tend to, this is one of my little isms, right? Most people spend the first 50 years of their lives on the planet pursuing a definition of success that someone else gave them. Right? And they don't really want it, but they're doing it because they thought they had to. And then they get there and like, why am I doing this? And then they have this moment where like, well, what would I do? And they don't know the answer. And that's part of why the personality thing can be helpful, because like the reason why I'm drawn to this early stage startup space is because that's how my brain's wired, but not everyone else is. So go find your thing and your purpose. That's like a little bit of.
No, that's great. We didn't even know we were going to go there, but I think circling back to Sarasota, the reason this is so relevant here is we've got all this talent and experience and wisdom in the older people who do live here, leaning into the stereotype for once that is often not harnessed because, like you said, no one's asking them to get involved and roll their sleeves up and get in rather than just asking them for money.
Yeah, I think it's a two-way street. We need to ask for their help, and they also need to understand that there's an opportunity for them to enrich themselves through that, as opposed to feeling like it's a chore or a burden. But like if they actually found the kinds of things that they would really like to do, then they would look for. There's only so many hours you can golf, watch Netflix, or whatever. Maybe Netflix is the standard. Would you rather go do this or watch Netflix, right? And like for me, when I'm at like it's 8 o'clock at night, I'm like I would rather go do this thing than watch another show, right? And that's the test, right? But I think a lot of people out there in that 65, 75-year-old range don't even think that way. They feel like they crossed the finish line. They're sort of just coasting around. The reality is a lot of people are going to live a lot longer, right? So 65 to 100 is a long time to go just watching Netflix. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they're not going to live longer if they don't keep that active brain, right? Like that's a huge. I mean, you see the statistics after retirement, people that aren't really being active with whatever they were doing before. The death rate is in 10 years is through the roof, and it's just they're giving up on that purpose.
Plus the health span versus lifespan.
You got something on that?
You said roof. I just got excited.
Said roof?
Yeah.
Through the roof.
No, but
He's here for one reason, okay? It's to promote strong roofing, and so if you say the word roof, he gets excited.
It's like Pavlov, right?
Any opportunity.
Pavlov's dog.
Yeah.
I think you're not a dog trainer.
Wow, so I hear roof.
No, but we've talked a lot on the podcast about health span versus lifespan. So it's not just how long they live; it's also at what quality. But I think this is such a good thing to spend time on because I feel like Sarasota, because of the demographics that we have here, we're actually on the vanguard of a larger trend in the country. The country is getting older.
Yeah.
Go look at Japan. They've been going through this for 10, 20 years. We're going to have a lot of those same issues that they have. And we're not culturally them, so we're not necessarily going to deal with them in the most productive ways. So we need to start talking more about how we can get older folks. I don't even like using the word older, like people that are more advanced in life, engaged, and harnessing that energy because there's still energy there.
And productive,
right? Exactly.
So I'll share a quick story. So a few weeks ago, I trained the entire first-year MBA program at Harvard Business School. It was like a big milestone for me. So like here in Sarasota, in my office, they beamed me into 16 different classrooms across the whole campus up there. And it was really challenging from like I couldn't see a lot of it, just had to say my thing, right? And out of that... and
probably look at yourself while doing it a little bit.
It was awkward,
too,
you're like, don't look down in that corner.
The worst.
Put some paper over that, right? Anyways, it then led to... Through my conversations with them, I figured out that a bunch of former Harvard Business School professors live in Sarasota. Sort of organically came out. And so I asked my lead guy there, I'm like, can you make some intros? And the gentlemen that he introduced me to are, definitely in the demographic we're describing in terms of like well past the end of their professional career from a timeline perspective. And I looked them up, each of them are still doing their thing. Right. And I think academics kind of have like a little bit more permission to do that because they're a specialist in their area. Right. But they're still getting phone calls from people from all over the world asking for their expertise. That's going to keep them enriched and alive a lot longer as a result.
Academics are a unique class. I hate to use that word, but I don't know what else to say. Folks.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they have that. Yeah. They keep that position. Even, you're emeritus.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
You can't sell your roofing company and say you're a roofer emeritus. I mean, people would laugh at you.
I'll put it on a business card.
He's certainly going to.
I want to see that on a shirt.
Even after you're dead, you still taught at Harvard Law or whatever, or Boston University Law or Trinity College or whatever. So you keep those titles, which is kind of a unique class, like I said.
Well, and the other unique thing about it is your job is literally to educate people and you're always going to run into people that need education. And so if you were passionate about that or that was your purpose, it doesn't matter whether you're 80 in a retirement home, you're going to be starting to educate the people around you or, you're still staying active with what you're doing. So
it's a noble calling that we should celebrate more in these times. That's all I'll say about that.
Well said.
Just less of the Harvard ones though, because
hey, I'm just saying, I'm speaking generally.
Yeah, fair.
Generally,
Fair. Well, I think that we can kind of land the plane as far as the Sirq stuff with this one. I'm very curious because I always try to think about the people listening to this and how we can get them involved, right? So for the one or two people that are going to catch this podcast, one being your partner, right? He's going to watch it. So he's already involved. But for the one other person that's going to watch this, if somebody is in the healthcare space or, somebody is got this idea for an app or, I mean, if you're going to launch 15 to 20 tech companies, I can imagine there's a wide range of opportunity there. And maybe somebody's got an idea, maybe somebody's got just, something they're already building. How do they get involved and what does that look like? Is the studio an actual studio? Like, are they going to go work out of there with you alongside? Are you guys going to lock arms? So tell us a little bit more about that.
It's a great question. So the studio will eventually be a physical location with an office. In that office, we're going to be coming up with our own ideas, testing those in the market. This is a key part of the studio process. You don't just go launch a company. Yeah. I've seen that too many times. It doesn't work.
Well, you can do it. Just fails more times than not.
And then you're just going to watch your money go there, right? So a lot of well-meaning founders do exactly that. They go out there, I'm the next Steve Jobs. And that was an outlier, right? And if you're pursuing that without market validation, you're highly likely to fail.
Explain this as an example. Trey has what idea? I come to you.
Well, I was on the board of a
tough
company where
one.
this happened, right? So this guy had this amazing technology platform for private equity firms, right? This thing was so slick and so ahead of its time. He poured all of his retirement money into this thing. Not a single buyer. Not one person bought it. They're like, it looks beautiful, but we've got all these other solutions we already have under 3-year contracts. We literally can't buy it until all those run out. Right? He should have figured that out before he went and built the product.
Yeah, but so I'm an entrepreneur. I come to you. I want to be in the studio
Yeah.
with you. How does that look?
Well, so that's a little
You
different.
can't just be an entrepreneur, Trey. You got to like have an idea for a
Well,
tech startup or something.
Yeah, give me one.
Yeah, you
Well,
can.
no,
You can
I
just
mean-
put on Instagram your handle, entrepreneur, and here you are.
All right, so,
Okay,
so
I have some tech AI that services roofers, and I want to come to and get involved with you. How does that
Sorry.
look?
So the typical approach for a studio is we actually come up with the ideas ourselves and then
Okay.
we validate them. So we're not looking for a lot of external stuff.
Okay.
Unless it's someone who's got a proven existing business and they don't do anything that's scalable or online. Right? And they want to take that expertise and put it into a format that we can help them build. Right, so we have a person in town who's like an expert in this really, really specialized category of medicine. And she has this amazing practice that she's not going to just stop doing. But she's like, how do I reach a much broader audience? We can work with that. We actually take that technology, the expertise she has, put it into technology. Now everyone in the world who can't call her, they don't even know her, right, will be able to access that information.
So it's the expertise, but you wouldn't do the same thing if somebody had like proven IP that they just didn't know how to scale.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can be a helpful advisor and steer them, but they're not going to be part of the studio because we think of ourselves as builders. So if someone's already built it, then they don't need our help.
Right.
But if they don't know how to build it or how to bring that company to life, that's where we come in.
Interesting.
So you guys are going to basically come up with a lot of ideas together. There's going to be a lot of ideas, a lot of time on the whiteboard.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea is that we can go out and spend a little bit of money, like 50 grand, to find out if anyone wants that thing. And if the answer is no, we put it on the shelf and move away.
Got it.
Or if the answer is, oh my God, we needed that yesterday, that's when we pursue.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. You moved to Sarasota, 13 years ago. So you've seen a lot of the changes. That's, great. I'm going to pass it over to Trey for a little Sarasota-based question.
Sirq Studio. What do you think about circles and roundabouts?
Who wants to know, Trey?
Common Era Law and Trey Martell want to know.
So actually, I'm a big roundabout fan. I do a lot of work in the UK, and it's a lot better, I think, than what it was doing before. Like, there are places where we need them, right? My kids drive up to Brecon and take a ride on Fruitville. That's going to have to be a roundabout.
Give us a roundabout.
Dude, you ain't lying. I just bought a house on Brecon, and that, whether you're going north or south, I guess
Up or
it is.
down,
It's
east or west.
You can't do it. You can't
terrible.
do it. Yeah.
Especially like school traffic, the stop signs, they back up. I've literally had to turn around at Fruitville and say, screw it, I'm just going to go Palmer.
Yeah.
Because
The
the
Brecon,
line
is
so long.
this an out east conversation?
It's hardly out east. I mean, really, out east used to be past I-75, right? I believe
You might
out
see a
east.
cow or
I believe
two.
the line for out east
Okay.
has moved to like Lorraine now. So
Interesting.
technically,
I like
we're
that.
west of Lorraine. So I would say we're not out east.
Okay, so
But
this is a conversation we haven't had yet on the podcast.
that's
good.
what I believe
East is
because
75.
I second
is east.
the
I-
motion.
I think lines are meant to move and be broken. So things change.
I mean, you got west of Trail, right? It
Mm-hmm.
could also be west of Lorraine.
I would argue west of Trail has even changed too. Look at what's going
Big
on
time.
east of the Trail, south of Hyde Park Street because of that school district.
There you
$1 million
go.
homes, bam. Who would have saw that coming?
Right.
Well, I
I guess
did.
someone did. Right.
So we asked that question for a lot of different reasons, but it's really about the growth and the different,
It's a proxy.
It's a proxy, as Felipe would
So
say.
they're learning. We've only done 99 episodes.
It doesn't even benefit us to ask you what you think about the growth because we literally started the podcast saying, "Hey, screw Chicago and Seattle and Boston and all these places. Just come here, right? Maybe it doesn't have to be Sarasota. They can move to Bradenton too. What's the new word for Northport?
Well, Welland Park.
Welland Park.
It's
There
still
you go.
Northport.
Welland
It's just
Park.
it's a sub neighborhood.
I know,
right?
but it's like
Lakewood
it's like
Ranch and
it's like
Bradenton.
calling
There was a legal
somebody.
fight about that, I
it's
heard
calling
recently.
somebody in Sarasota like from Bradenton, right? It's the same.
I mean,
same
Northport's
same
growing.
thing.
Biggest city in the
Welland
area.
Park is for
Just
sure.
saying.
So we asked that question about growth. We know how you feel about it, of course, but Felipe's got another question for you.
Let's
and
tease
I think
this out for a minute because I think no. There's a reason I'm doing this. When people hear the word tech, that's almost universally a positive word. Everyone loves tech right now. Around here, when people hear the word growth, it is very polarizing.
Yeah.
There's people who think that's a proxy for more New Yorkers and idiots coming down here, or
But that's a
and
little
more
redundant
traffic,
for this Boston
right?
guy.
You know. Yeah, there you go.
Lord
I'll
forbid
give
a
that.
guy from New Hampshire.
I teed that one up against me. Or there's people who like, okay, that means more for my business.
Sure.
Right? So it creates these camps when we use that word. Like, what's been your experience with that aspect of the term growth when you kind of move around in Sarasota?
Yeah,
compared to how people talk about tech, especially.
I mean, so for me personally, it's happening. It's just happening. So like, there's no feeling good or bad about it. There's better ways we can handle it, certainly, right? We need to fix a lot of housing
Infrastructure-wise,
issues,
for sure.
all sorts of stuff, like low-hanging fruit that the community's going to have to get on board with. I don't think you can hide your head in the sand and say, let's not grow. It's happening, right? The desire to be in this part of the world is not changing, right? People don't go from 300 days of sunshine back to these places we're talking about. They're going to stay, and they're going to tell their friends, and those friends are going to come visit, and they're going to want to, like we had a colleague from Grand Rapids come down once, and she bought a place on Anna Maria. It's not hard to get people to sort of feel the magic, and then we're going to have the growth whether we want it or not.
Oh, you got a point, because if you live in one of those climates and you have resources, why would you not want to have a little piece of paradise?
Have you talked to a person from Chicago who moved here in COVID who wants to move back full time?
Nope, that's my wife.
Right?
She stayed.
That's so funny.
Now she's got to stay.
Oh yeah, happily ever
All right,
after.
so now Felipe's got a question for you.
Oh, I do have a question for
Fire
you.
away.
So you've been on Sarasota SpeaX. You see what we do here. Thank you for coming. We enjoyed it greatly. Who do you know who we may not know, who Sarasota needs to know? Who should we invite on Sarasota SpeaX?
Wow, that's a really good question.
We like to put him on the spot.
I've been trying to improve my delivery.
Yeah,
per-
the
per
delivery was great. I
per
gave
the
a little,
peanut gallery.
I
over
gave him a
there.
little critique, and it's been
A rare
spot on.
thumbs up.
Have you had Dean Eisner on here yet?
We have not, and I don't know that name, so educate us, please.
So Dean has come in through my co-pilot Tom Gardner's network. He actually hosted the event we had last week out in Longboat. Just a wonderful guy, and a true believer in what Sarasota, the best of Sarasota and what it could be. So I think he'd be a great advocate for your audience.
A visionary.
There you go.
Any more about him other than he has great ideas? Not that that's bad. I'm just curious. What's his back like?
So he does a lot of work for nonprofits, giving back to not only communities here but elsewhere. He's a very future-focused person who believes very much in Sarasota's future. So that's the kind of vibe that I think you guys are
Okay,
on.
so like philanthropist.
Philanthropist. Yeah, that's
Okay,
a perfect word.
that's
The
a nice
podcast
way
is
of
called
saying it.
Sarasota SpeaX, so sounds like he might be a good fit.
I mean, I know
Dean.
I know a lot of people that have ideas, but some of them, we probably want to put on this show. Others maybe not. But you vouch for him, so
You'll have a
hear what the gentleman has
pre-podcast
to say.
call and see if he's your
Well,
fit.
listen,
No, we don't
it's-
fact check.
Thank you, Rob, for coming on. We're excited to hear more about Sirq. The Typecoach, is that available to individuals or is it businesses?
It is available to
So
individuals.
where would folks find it if they were interested?
Typecoach.com.
Typecoach.com. There you go. That's TYPE.
And you can also,
Coach.com.
I would love to extend this to your audience. So if you want to go through it and just email me, rob@typecoach.com, I'll hook you up.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hey,
Perfect.
That'd be
Can I
fun.
get it for my dad? Sweet.
Yeah. Well, so
Learn how to communicate better with people.
this has been fun,
IED.
right? So like our corporate clients asked us for this, so we created a friends and family thing. So you can actually invite, when you go through, you can invite people from your personal lives to go through, and they'll show up in that chart. And next thing you know, you'll have a conversation with your significant other.
So-
who's like, oh shit.
What's the number one invite? Is it mother-in-laws?
It's definitely spouse.
Definitely spouse.
Yeah. So
I try to get my wife to do it the same night. Same day.
yeah, people have deep curiosity. And by the way, I will say this is probably a good closing element. So people always ask, like they're going through the profiling exercise. We ask them to profile 5 or 6 people during the course of the program, and they always put their spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. And they're like, is it usual that they're the exact opposite? And actually, statistically unlikely that would be the case. And it happens all the time that people are 3 or 4 out of the aspects of personality different from their spouse.
I believe it.
And we don't know why.
I think I'm 5.
Yeah, we don't know why it is, but like people seem to be drawn to elements of difference in
I know
their
why.
significant other.
I'll tell you. Ready?
Yeah.
Opposites attract. Boom.
Something to it.
Boom.
Something to it. I will say, and this is a joke.
That was
come
my
up with that
ism.
yourself.
This is a joke that I only use when it's a safe environment. So people do definitely they're drawn to their opposite in first marriages.
We're very much alike. I mean, we're almost identical. Well, Rob, thanks so much for being here. We enjoyed it, and you want to plug it one more time?
Typecoach.com.
Typecoach.com.
Sirq Studio.
Sirq Studio.
SIRQ.com.
Very awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
We'll do this for the third time.